Okay. Any other comments? I'll give you my perspective and what I've done in the budget. And the easy answer is I haven't done anything different than what I had in there in July. And let me give the reasons for that. And I met with the constable yesterday and gave him these reasons face to face. But I think it's important to have this public discussion. We have two issues here. We have a personnel issue. We have a vehicle issue that are present that want to be increased by the constable. Let's start with the number of papers that you're serving. You compared yourself to other constables, but let's compare back to the prior constable. To date, last year, at this time last year, Constable Garman had served or had 1,095 papers to serve. To date, this year, you do not have that. You have about 800 and something papers, 806. So you've got about 80% or a little less than 80%, 75% of the papers that your office is being asked to serve this year compared to last year. So you got less papers to serve. Commissioner Hampton also pointed out you've decided you don't want to do the parking lot security, which is fine. That's your prerogative. You don't have to do that. It's not a statutory duty. It's just something your office has done as a courtesy to the county. Sheriff's office has graciously agreed to pick that up. When I met with you yesterday, what was surprising to me about this was the things that you started out with, and these are your statements. Mm-hmm. You started out by talking about how busy your officers were because you had so many funeral escorts to do, so many community events to attend, and so much traffic control to do within the city. Mm-hmm. Those are quotes from the notes I wrote down. When I asked you, well, if you weren't doing those things, what would your office look like? Your quote was, quote, we would be 8 to 5 Monday through Friday if we didn't have to do those things. Mm-hmm. My response to you was, well, you don't have to do those things. And so that's concerning to me that, the busyness of your office is focused on things that are outside of your statutory duties. Again, something that Commissioner Phillips has hit on from time to time. And then, when we pressed further yesterday in our discussion, what we found out was your officers are getting paid for those things. And you said they get paid from the funeral home to do escorts, and they get paid by these other entities 90% of the time when they do the traffic control and community events. So as the statutory budget officer, or as the budget officer of this county, it's concerning to me that you're asking me to give you more vehicles, more personnel, when in fact, if you would just utilize the vehicles and personnel in the manner that you're supposed to, or they are your statutory duties, you probably wouldn't have a big need for those.
So
hold on, I still got some more to say. And there's an independence your office has because of being an elected official, but we do not have a responsibility to subsidize the choices you're making. Let me give you another example. You talk about the part-time money being reduced, and you'd have to reduce the part-time budget, or you'd have to reduce the part-time pay for an officer. Well, the other option is don't work them that many hours. You can still pay them per hour the amount that you need to attract good folks, but you don't have to work them that many hours. And that has been a problem for you. And this is another issue that, as I look at what to do with budgets each year and which departments and which offices to increase or decrease, I have to look at who's being good stewards with that money. Let me talk about the last 6 months, in particular about your part-time staff. Mm-hmm. So already in 6 months, in the first 7 months of your time here, you've tried to put a part-time staff member, this one you just talked about, on a paid administrative leave, which is something the law doesn't allow. Our HR department and legal department had to tell you can't do that. And that was something that you had done outside of consultation with them, and we had to go back and reform that. You've asked this court to send a reserve officer to peace officer to go get their peace officer's license on the county's dime, which is contrary to our longstanding policy. You had consistently had part-time officers working more than 30 hours per week, and our legal department and HR department had to come back to you and tell you, you can't do that. If you do that, that creates a legal problem for us, because now we have to, if you do that for too long of a period of time, that creates a scenario where we have to provide benefits to them. So what I told you yesterday was, you need to just focus on managing the assets that we're giving to you, learn the law, learn how to run that office, and then we can talk about increasing that in the future if we need to. The prior fiscal year for part-time, where we have known expenses from an entire fiscal year, was about $16,000 actual expenses. So the reduction that I've made is still above that level. You can manage that time. Now you can mismanage that time, and you can run through that amount of money pretty quickly, and then come back to the court and say, "Hey, I need more part-time money because I've gone through it." But that's a management issue. You can also drive those vehicles in such a way, or use them for a lot of things that we talked about today that are not statutorily required duties, that are outside of what the county's responsibilities are. And you can use those assets up much more quickly and in a way that requires or seems to require replacement more quickly. But that's not our responsibility to subsidize you doing things outside of your statutory duties. We're providing you the assets to do your job. You need to manage that office in a way that is within the law. When it comes to the scope of duties, you've also in the past 6 months refused for a period of time to serve out of precinct papers. You've refused for a period of time to bailiff the Precinct 1 JP office.
That's not true.
But you were before this court saying that.
No, that is not true.
And
I will not let you say that. That is not true.
There's currently a situation where you told me yesterday that the Precinct 1 JP office is not 100%, so you're not having to dedicate 100% of the time over there these days. That's what you told me yesterday. So there's a lot of instances where you've cut back.
That just recently happened.
That's right. But it's continuing a deal that decreases the need for additional part-time during this year when you've run that part-time already through the roof. You need to manage that department.
Now, may I respond, please?
You may.
Okay, so in managing my department, my part-time budget is, we discussed this also, and you asked me why was it that those previous departments could do it at 16 and we're having to pay more. And my reply to you was that I have to bailiff the JP court now. Previous Constable Bobby Garman was kicked out of the court by Judge Beavers for improper influence. Constable Jackson had the community policing program where he could bring other deputies in to help him in areas that he didn't have enough deputies for, which we only have 2 full-time deputies. So, and then he had a large reserve department also to be able to help him do that. We only have myself, 2 deputies, and 1 reserve officer. That is the chief of police for Bullitt ISD. So when we are out doing things, and another thing is all of these programs that you mentioned that are outside of our duties, these programs were in place before I took office, which was authorized by the court, such as funeral escorts and these other things that are in place. So when I came into office and took office, I just picked up where we left off instead of start cutting services just for the heck of it. So all of these programs were already in place before I took office. They just continued once I did take office. So I didn't create these programs, they were already there. So to tell me that now you need to manage the budget for programs that were already there is ludicrous to me.
Your predecessors were doing it with the budget we gave them.
Yeah, but they had more people to do it with also.
And when it comes to vehicles, you've got 5 current vehicles, you've got 3 full-time staff members and 1 part-time. So you've got four members and 5 vehicles. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. And this is the other thing too. When we talked about, if do we need to give him another vehicle? When I look at that, I'm also looking at all the other vehicles in the county, and if we're going to add another $38,000 or $40,000 to buy another vehicle and to equip it, your vehicle is not the next one in the list. There's others. Now, this vehicle the second vehicle you won't replace is on the radar to be replaced next fiscal year. But that's just part of how county government works. Everybody doesn't get what they want all the time immediately when they want it. And I told you this yesterday, I've told every elected official in this county at some time or another, no. And I've made every elected official in this county at one time or the other probably mad at me. That's my job as a county judge, is to make the tough calls, understanding the whole picture. And I'm asking you, just like I would ask every other elected official, to understand the broader picture and to understand that your piece of the puzzle is just one piece of the puzzle. If we were going to add $40,000 to the capital budget to buy more vehicles, your vehicle would not be the next one on the list. There's